Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Making It, a podcast about making things with our bare hands, hosted by Jimmy Diresta, Bob Clagett, and myself, David Picciuto. Since this is our first episode, we're going to go around the table and introduce ourselves and talk about what we do. So let's start with Jimmy Diresta. Who are you, and what do you do?
My name is Jimmy Diresta, and I make things for a living. And actually, I have been making things my entire life, ever since I was in elementary school, for pay. And so it's pretty interesting. Now that I'm 47 years old, I look back and I realize it's all I've ever done is make things with my hands for pay. And right now I'm working with a lot of different clients, mostly branding clients. I'm doing a lot of branding for the liquor business, and that involves making signage and displays. And actually, I might make a woody trailer. Do you guys ever see these little coffee bean trailers? Oh, the kidney bean trailers. There's a kidney bean trailer. Like you pull behind a car and you sleep in it.
Oh, yeah.
Like the classic looking ones. I've just been, I'm developing this particular job. I might actually make 2 of those, but the problem is, where will I make them? I don't have enough room. So, but I make all kinds of stuff for all kinds of people. That's what I do.
Cool. All right, Bob?
Well, I'm a programmer by trade, so I've been doing web development and programming for, 15, 16 years now. So I do that, as my day job. And then after hours or at lunchtime, I make stuff and just make all sorts of things. I'm kind of like Jimmy in the fact that I have a really varied interest. I like to make all sorts of different things, but I think I make a lot of different things than what Jimmy makes, obviously. So, but yeah, it's really, I spend my time mostly making stuff to fill a need, in my house or for somebody I know or something like that. So a lot of things I do are really practical and very purpose-built, stuff like that. So, yeah. What about you, David?
I am mostly a woodworker. At least that's what I'm known for. I make a lot of small craft things, and I make videos on how to make small crafts that you can sell on Etsy or handmade shows. I'm known as the Drunken Woodworker, and that's what I do. I'm also a hobbyist photographer, and I'm a musician. I do lots of things, and it's all kind of led to where I'm at now, making videos and teaching woodworking.
That's great. I actually also teach for 20 years. This is my 20th anniversary this fall, teaching at the School of Visual Arts in New York. I teach 1 class each week about 3-dimensional design. And it's amazing that 20 years has gone by. I didn't even notice.
Is the class called 3-dimensional design?
I'm in the graphic design department, so my chairperson is the head of the graphic design department. So I am a 3D teacher in a 2D world. So I introduce students to a lot of different varieties of 3D mold making, handling clay, a little bit of woodwork because they don't really have too many resources to actually do proper woodwork, silk screening, package design, any kind of 3-dimensional design, styrene plastic, vacuum forming. So I give my students a little bit of a intro to each one of these different topics. Sewing, I'll literally bring a sewing machine in and make something on the sewing machine. So it's a really rewarding class for the students. They all seem to get stuff out of it. It's always a slow start because they read the description in the book and they're not quite sure what the class is about. And then when they get in, and then it's all students that, for the most part, have never made anything with their hands. They're all very computer savvy, but they're not literally physically savvy when it comes to hand doing things. But they slowly start to catch up. It's fun.
That's a really interesting commonality. I actually taught at the art school that I went to for a while. I didn't realize that we were all kind of teachers at heart, but that's
did you go to SCAD?
Yeah, I went to SCAD and did computer art there, but I had to take all the 2D and 3D design classes and all that stuff. And then right when I finished school, I went back and taught actually some of the classes that I'd just taken for interactive design. Did that for a little while I was starting up a company. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the School of Visual Arts does that too. A lot of the students that do well as a student, they hire them right away to teach anything from typography to computer skills. It's a really cool school in that way that they bring students right back. The teachers will recommend to the hierarchy that this particular student is good, so the teachers stay in touch with them, and it's all working professionals. That's sort of the motto of the school. So I could in a semester, it's great because I get involved with TV and stuff from time to time, so I could introduce potential projects to my students, and then as the semester begins to develop, so do my projects. And I always involve whatever is going on in my professional career with my students so that they could see it develop. And it's great. It's great for them. It's great for me to be able to share that with them, so they could see real life examples of this kind of stuff, which is something that I lacked when I was a student. A lot of my teachers, there's this sort of confidentiality thing, and I used to think to myself, you're making a graphic design for a potato chip company. I'm a 18-year-old student. All I care about is getting high and getting drunk. Why in the world I'm gonna run to the competitive potato chip company and tell them about your stupid graphic design? This one teacher in particular, who she would always say, she would never really show us her work and never really explain what she was doing, and she would always say client confidentiality. I understand it, but she's not.
But you're a teacher.
You're a teacher. I had another teacher who actually, he had real client confidentiality in the way that he was doing corporate identity. He was a great teacher, and I learned so much from him that I still use on a daily basis. And that is, he would do, when 3 or 4 companies would merge, and it's total insider trading stuff, and he would do the corporate identity. And he would have to sign documents on top of documents to say that he wouldn't tell anybody, because he knew that these 4 giant companies were going to merge, these public companies, or there was going to be a takeover, and they had to have a lot of the corporate identity prepared. So I always thought that was real interesting. So that's really what he couldn't say. He would show us past work, he just wouldn't show us current work.
Jimmy, do your students know who you are when they take the class? Because I know you've had a couple TV shows.
It's funny. Not always, but my assistant David, who's been with me now for 7 years, he saw me. The very first show I did was a show called Trash to Cash, which was on FX Network for literally 3 weeks, and then it was off. They ran 2 episodes a week, and then nobody ever saw it again. And so we did 6 or 7 episodes. But he recognized me right away when he came into class. He goes, "Hey, you did a TV show." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I watched it. It was one of my favorite shows." So, and then in time, he became my personal shop assistant. David, he's in some of the videos. He's a great guy. He's been real loyal. And just recently, so that was 7, 8 years ago, and recently one of my students, I have a lot of students this year from China, because the school does marketing in different parts of the world, and so that wave eventually comes to school. So I have lots of students literally from mainland China. And this is one of my students. He happens to be from Hong Kong. And he stayed in after class a couple weeks ago. And he was very nervous. He was kind of jittery and nervous. He goes, "You're the guy from Dirty Money, aren't you?" And I go, "Yeah." And he was kind of starstruck a little bit. And he didn't recognize me right away. So when he first came to class, he was really, he was just casual and cool. But then when he realized he had been watching me on TV, because I usually keep a big beard, I just shave my beard off. He got a little neurotic, a little nervous to say. But I was like, "Dude, chill out. It's no big deal." But what was funny was he we had several interactions, and it wasn't until after a couple of weeks he realized who I was. So it was funny. But it doesn't happen that often. It's only happened a handful of times, those 2 notable times.
Do you enjoy it? Do you secretly enjoy it?
Oh, no, it's nice to be recognized. It's totally cool. It's funny. The other day, it doesn't happen very often. It happens to my brother more often, because my brother's the big mouth. And again, I didn't have a beard on the shows, most of the shows I've ever done, and now I keep a big beard, so people really don't recognize me. The other day, I was at this lumberyard, Premium Lumber, up near Albany, where they sell all types of specialty lumber and plywoods. And the guy working there recognized me. He was very nice, and he gave me a couple extra sheets of plywood, which is nice. So when it comes to stuff like that, it's nice. It's really cool. But of course, it's not why I'm in it.
Well, let's play off of that and talk about where we get some of our materials.
This is a place in Albany, and I've owned my house in upstate New York 10 years now. And so in the last couple of years, I've been really trying to use the resources up and around Albany. So when I'm upstate during the work week, I can go to Albany Steel and get the steel I need. I can go to this premium plywood. It's actually much easier shopping for these bigger materials up there, because I could drive in and park my car. In New York, you can't put your car anywhere. You got to get deliveries. In some cases, the delivery truck is in front of my shop down here on Clinton Street, and it's taking up traffic. In the pouring rain today, I had to offload 30 pieces of steel while the car was holding traffic up, and it's all more chaotic, of course, in the city. So I try and use Albany and upstate New York more and more often for resources.
Bob, you make all kinds of different things. Do you have a favorite place to get materials?
No, not really, because a lot of my stuff is it has to be ordered. It's not stuff that you can buy locally most places, you know. Any of the electronics components, they're just really hard to come by locally. As far as wood and metal, I mean, I haven't done a lot of metal work in the last several years, but wood, I've gotten a lot of it from some local places, like personal connections. Like I know a woman who, her father was a cabinet maker and he passed away. She sold off all of his stuff, all of his wood, all of his tools, stuff like that. And so that was a chance for me to load up on a lot of material and just hang on to it. You know, and I've got stacks of stuff that I don't know when I'll get to it. And kind of like that, my grandfather is a woodworker and he always has been. You know, a couple times a year we'll send down with my parents a whole bunch of wood, just like big stacks of stuff that he's collected. You know, so I have these kind of interesting, you know, connections for that type of stuff. But I really just kind of piece together what I need for a specific project wherever I can find it.
Yeah, where I'm at, we have it's a hardwood dealer and it's a family-owned business that's been around for like 25 years, and it's one of those places that it's really hard to go in and get what you need and get out, because you end up talking to them for 45 minutes. And even when I tell myself, okay, I'm going to get out of here right away because I got stuff to do, I can't, because they're just so friendly. And they try to get local woods when they can, but they also get a lot of exotic woods that I love playing with. So,
what is the name?
Kencraft, Kencraft. And they do sell online.
I go to Rosenzweig in the Bronx, and it's just the opposite. If you don't know what you want, I always use the analogy of the Monty Python movie where they're at the bridge, and if they don't answer the question in the proper syllables, they get blown off the bridge. So this is a place in the Bronx. If you don't know what you want and you don't know how to say it quick, you literally they just say, this guy's a dummy, and they just turn their back to you. It's a bunch of hardened like Bronx characters, and
that's unfortunate.
Anyway, but I've gotten they know me now. I just walk in, and the way I've been able to buy their fake sincerity is I just give everybody tips. So the minute I walk in, I just start handing everybody $5 bills. I usually give them the money after I place my order. So like I just walk up and I hand the guy in the bay who would assemble my order. You know, it might be 5 sheets of plywood, you know, veneer core plywood with, mahogany or whatever on the outside, and then a couple pieces of hardwood, which you have to pick from upstairs. Then they send it down, and then they have these sticks where they check the board footage. And so when I get my green sheet and I've paid in the office, I walk back out and I just literally hand him the green sheet with a $5 bill in it. He's so used to it now when he sees me, you know, he's getting 5. And then the guy who brings it to my truck, he gets a 5. And if there's another guy who helps him, he gets a 5. That's just the way I get their respect. Otherwise, they just ignore you. It's crazy.
I do the same thing when I go to a busy bar. Like that first drink that I get, tip big, and they will spot you out of a crowd next time.
Yeah, totally. I tip everybody big. It really keeps everybody on their toes.
Nice.
Yeah, It's nice. So, guys, we were talking a little bit earlier about how creativity is spurned for each one of us. David, would you like to start to talk a little bit about where you get your creative juices going?
Sure. That's a tough question. Where does creativity come from? For some people, it's a spiritual thing, and for me, it's just my brain constantly in motion. And I have a lot of friends who are artists. I don't know many woodworkers, but I know a lot of artists. I see what they do, and it inspires me. And I'm like, oh, I just want to create something. I want to be like them. And I don't know. Maybe it's jealousy, or maybe it's not. But I will be inspired to make something out of wood from a painting or a sculpture that I see. Yeah. And I try to do that all the time. Or architecture is a great inspiration for me. I'm like, oh, what if you made a box that was shaped like that building? You know. So
yeah, I could relate to that.
For me, it's all about keeping my mind and my eyes open and allowing to absorb all that throughout the day. So
yeah, totally. Bob?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same way in that a lot of it's based on observation. But when I think of creativity, and this has come up in a couple of conversations recently, but when I think of my creativity, I don't think of it in the way that artists do. And I mean, I have an art background, and you know, I know a ton of amazing painters and people that's what I think of as the word creativity. But for me, when I apply it to myself, I think of it more as problem solving. So it's
that's a
the
good point.
creative solution to a problem, to fixing a problem. And when I take it in that way, then I can apply it to a lot more stuff for me personally. You know, I can feel creative in a lot more ways. So as far as getting inspired or any of that stuff, I think I've found over the last couple of years that my main source is having a problem and then seeing a solution that someone else has done or a solution that I've done to it in the past. And then somehow my mind gets on this processing track for it. And I start going through all the permutations of that thing. So like, recently I did a project that was my dust collection system. And so it was a need that I had, and I filled that need, but then I couldn't stop once I had that dust collection system there. I was like, oh, wait, I need to hook it up to an Arduino and make, so I can control it. So I did that. And then since I did that one, I've got 3 or 4 more additions to it, like things to make it a little bit better, things to improve it. And so I don't know that I would normally call that creative, but I think it's me trying to find better ways to solve problems. And
yeah, it's funny because I get very obsessive about things, and it's funny when I watched your dust collection video, my mind started solving all these different problems that I watched in your thing. So I took it apart your gate trap and I put it back together about 10 different times in my mind since I saw it, because it's like it pegs a board in my brain. It's like it puts a post-it note in my brain, like, oh, there's multiple ways to solve that problem, and that's how my mind works. So when I see a need, like a lot of times because of our YouTube videos that we all do, a lot of times I know that I'll have to make a YouTube video. And this particular one I'm working on right now, this is sort of how my creativity flow goes. It's like I know I need a video for Halloween, for instance. And so I think, what can I make for Halloween? I can carve a pumpkin. I could do this. I could do that. And my mind always sort of gravitates towards different coffins because I love the way coffins are made and, the beauty that goes into them. And some of them are super simple. Some of them are pretty. So my mind just started like observing, and actually there's lots of coffin makers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. I didn't realize that was so many. I just build a coffin, and there's all these different coffin makers on YouTube. Some are serious, some are just sight gags. And so my mind just starts going through all the different versions of like what type of a coffin I would make and the different ways to make it. And so I literally start building it in my mind. And then what happens with me is my brain starts working in behind the scenes on that particular project. And so I completely just like slowly begin to lose consciousness of it, at least, forward consciousness, and it goes into my subconscious. And so as I'm sleeping and as I wake up, I start getting these lucid visions of exactly how I should solve these problems. And you'll see in this video when I publish it, the complicated thing of making a so-called toe pincher coffin is the ones that look like the Dracula coffins, is the tapered sides. And I wanted all these tapered sides, and in my mind I'm like, it's a compound angle. It's a real pain in the butt to figure exactly how to do that. And because my mind starts to like dismantle things, I'm like, okay, you'll see the way I was able to solve this problem, making it out of plywood, of course, because it's a simple way to approach it, is to make it from plywood. But I did make it look like it was like a raised panel, series of raised panels. I kind of faked it, of course, but the way I cut the brim that is the top of the wide part of the taper versus the bottom, which is the narrow part of the taper, I literally cut the bottom and the top at the same exact time, and then cut a 2-inch edge off and raised it up in the air, and then filled in the tapered sides. So that was like the way my mind starts taking things apart. And I know this is a really long answer. I'm sorry. I'm rambling on.
Hey,
but yeah, it's the way my brain just like takes things apart and puts them back together. But I've been doing it for so long. I've been training my brain to like go to sleep on a project. Literally, I used to manufacture toys, so I used to solve mechanical parts and toys. And me and my brother would always do this brainstorming session together, and I would say, okay, what is the goal? The goal is for this to do that. How many different ways can this do that? And so my brain would start to literally jump on all these different options. And I'm reminding myself now, sorry for rambling, I'm reminding myself now of a mentor of mine, this guy named Bob, who used to design and invent. He had several patents. He passed away recently. He was a big mentor to me when I was developing my ability to think and invent and problem solve. And he always said, don't write anything down right away. He said, even if it takes a couple of weeks before you literally put your first note to the paper. He said, because the minute you write it down, you're locking yourself into something. You want your brain to be more lucid and to dissect and put it back together for you. He came from a really bizarre angle, but it's hard for me not to write things down. But sometimes I don't always do it. I hear Bob's head in my voice saying, don't write it down just yet. Just wait. Let it marinate a little bit longer.
Do you worry about forgetting that thought?
I do. Yeah, I do. I write things down. I scribble things down on my hand all the time. I write them in the palm or the back. You'll notice actually in this coffin video, I wrote on the back of my hand, Izzy 9:30 tonight. So I wouldn't forget Izzy's video. I saw it in the edit last night. You'll see it in a flash of the edit. So I always write things on the back of my hand so I don't forget them. And of course, I try to keep a notebook, but it's not always nearby. So I end up writing on the back of receipts and stuff. And I'll just write one word. I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, and my brother's a stand-up comic. So I see the notes that comics write, and I'm very similar. I'll just write one word, obviously, for just to stay on topic, coffin, toe pincher or whatever. I'm trying to think of what they call the video, so I might call it, Dracula toe pincher or something.
Yeah, just like a trigger word to get you back to that thought process. Yeah.
Yeah. My mind is pretty clear, honestly. I don't take any medications or anything like that, and I think it's really helped me to keep my brain, clear and when I see these people that could remember things on certain dates and stuff like that, I like to think I could do that. Of course I can't, but I know that I have the ability to remember the weirdest things from the weirdest times. Like when somebody says phone numbers near me, I usually just instantly remember them.
Where's this coffin going to end up?
I'm just gonna have it as a prop. You're gonna laugh at me, but I have two other coffins upstate. One that I just recently bought, which is made in all wicker. It's incredible. It's from Victorian. And another one that my dad found for me many years ago, which is very similar to the one I'm building. But the one that I have upstate is made of mahogany, and it's really heavy. It's from Palermo, Italy. My dad found it at a garage sale in Long Island. He called me and said, I'm looking at a beautiful coffin. I know you'd want it. He goes, it's $300. Would you pay me back? I was like, yeah, I'll pay you back. He was nervous I wasn't going to pay him back. So he bought that for me, and of course I paid him back. But just recently, for $300, coincidentally again, I got this wicker. If you guys if you're listening, Google Victorian wicker casket. And it's amazing. I love a little bit of morbid stuff. The wicker caskets were made so that the body wouldn't overheat inside of the thing. So that's why they made them in wicker, so that they could breathe. And then also so that they could breathe and that the flies wouldn't get on them. So that's why it was like putting the body in a net bag. And now wicker caskets are popular again because they're not harmful to the earth. They go back to the earth.
Is it a woven thing?
It's woven. Yeah, it's incredible. It's actually, my girlfriend and I might actually take a wicker class to make a backpack, like an old Explorer backpack. It's just like the big wicker baskets.
Yeah.
I'm becoming obsessed with those. I want to make a video of them. So I just bought two of them at garage sales. They're really old, so the straps are dry rotted. So, but the actual wicker and they're woven, which is great. And then so I bought those two backpacks, and I bought this casket all in the same time frame. So that's how I obsess on things. So my mind is racing, in the background, not on the foreground, in the background. These three things are just kind of being taken apart and put back together. And then eventually, I'll see something, and then boom, I'll have that eureka moment where it's make that in wicker, and then, add this detail. And then all of a sudden I have a project.
My wife she's a basket maker, and
no kidding.
She weaves, and now I need to ask her to make me a coffin.
I'm looking for the picture. I'm going to send you the picture of it. It's so beautiful. It's incredible. I saw it. It's so funny. I go to this flea market that has all this antique stuff at upstate New York, and this guy knows I'm a weirdo. The minute he saw me, he goes, I know you're itching. He goes, I see you sweating. I go, I don't have a dime in my pocket. I go, but I want it. I go, will you have it next week? He goes, probably. I go, all right, call me, and if you have it next week, I'll take it. And look at that.
Oh, wow.
I'm showing these guys a picture of this. It's all woven. And it's got a piece of wood down the middle, which is sort of the support, and has a wooden bottom. He told me what it was. It was a body bag, so to speak. They used it to transport the cadavers from the home to the... And it only has handles on the short end so that you could walk through stairwells and hallways with it.
Oh, wow. So those who are listening are I'm sure, very curious now. So we'll put together some show notes and try to get a link to this photo.
Oh yeah, no, I Googled wicker casket as soon as I got home. I was trying to find out if $300 was a good price for this thing, because I had a week to think about it. When it comes to something as odd as that, you don't see them very often. So it's not really, but it's almost priceless. It's like, you know what? When am I going to see a beautiful handmade wicker casket made 115, 20 years ago for $300? So if I have the money in my pocket, I usually always, if I do go to the flea market, I always try and keep like $400 or $500 in cash with me. I do that, like I'll do that once a month at the most. So I can always buy something really cool like that. And now I have it. We rent my house in upstate New York, so I'm not allowed to have my caskets out because we got a bad review.
That's understandable.
It's true. It's like I had this creepy little. And again, I keep these things around. They inspire me. They inspire my creativity, and that's what we're talking about.
I don't even know where you store a casket, though.
I just had it leaning on the wall. Before I met my girlfriend, and she kind of took control of the house, and we began to rent it, based on her encouragement. The casket used to be right on my dining room table, so if you wanted to eat dinner, you just push it to the side, and but it would be right on the dining room table. It was there for like 6 years. That was the big one made out of mahogany. And now that I have the wicker one, so it's in my garage. It's right next to my. If you guys. Actually, you could see it. It's in the video. Nobody noticed it. It's in the background of the Anvil video. It was the weekend I bought it. It was the weekend before the Anvil videos when I bought it. So it's out in the green grass. You see the end of it on the horses. I put it outside so it wouldn't get knocked into.
A little Easter egg.
Yeah, so it's in the background, and then also I think in that same video on the following weekend, because I took 2 weekends to make that video just because of my own logistics, when I use the circular saw that cuts the 3/8 metal, I think you see it also right in the background again. I was waiting for someone to point it out, but nobody did. So I don't know. My creativity is drawn from the weirdest things. So I try and always be extremely curious about anything. Like when I walk past garbage, I say, oh, here's a good opportunity to look at a dovetail drawer made, in production in 1970. Let me go look at it. So I take the drawer, break it open, I look at it, and then I say I store those mental images. When I see if I see a broken couch on the street and I'm able to like carve away the material and look at the joinery, I put those mental images in my mind. So it's like I pick the garbage constantly, but with my mind. I don't literally physically take stuff. So I think the garbage is a really good place, as makers to really find how things are made. Like if you go past the garbage and you see like a hockey bag in the garbage, I always make things on the sewing machine. I'll take my razor blade out and I'll dissect it. I'm like, oh, that's how they make that joint. I can't do that in my apartment because, if I do that, I'll get in trouble. But when you see things in the garbage, it's a great place to teach yourself how things are made.
Yeah.
So.
It's something you said earlier about combining, how you had the idea of the wicker and you had the idea of the something else, and your mind took those apart and combined them in kind of a different order. You said something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, that was just an example of that happens constantly. It's like I have to make another. I don't have to, but one of my planned videos is to make a cannon. I want to make a cannon, acetone or something cannon that booms on the front of a yacht. It was a request from a fan, and so I'm trying to think, what can I spin the cannon out of? I keep thinking of like, what can I spin it out of? But that would be visually cool. So I'm trying to. My mind is constantly like, can I spin it out of a plastic tube? No. Can I spin it out of a steel tube? I can, but that would take too long. Can I spin it out of a brass tube? And I want it to be meaty. I want it to be like 25 inches long, diameter of about 6 inches at its base. And so I've come to the conclusion that I might make it out of what's left over of that birch log that I've already made 2 other videos with. I made like a birdhouse and a little log treasure chest. So the piece that's left over is still long enough. I might just use that up.
You said that was a viewer request. Bob, do you ever make anything from requests?
No, I don't. I actually get quite a few of them. But I have a pretty limited schedule. I do all this stuff around the rest of my life, and I already have a list of things that I want to do, and most of those are very specific to, a need that I have or something that I've just really wanted. And so when someone asks me to do something for a video, it's not that I don't want to do it, but it falls really far down on the list, so.
Yeah, I mean, it is for me too. I promised this guy this thing like last summer.
Yeah.
And I found it in my notes, and I was like, wow, that would make a really good video. So when people do ask me, I think to myself, will it be a good video? Maybe. And honestly, I'll have to admit, at this point, there's nothing in my videos that is anything other than an original thought. There's nothing that's been a so-called request. So I do have a few that are good ideas. But when people ask me, I often say, oh, I'll put it on the list. That was really my standard answer.
Yeah. What about you, David?
I've never made anything from a request, at least not in a video format. Only been doing the weekly project videos for 2-3 months now, and I've got so many things that I want to make first, like you, based out of necessity. Or I have 2 handmade shows coming up in November and December. So everything that I'm making now, I'm making in bulk for those shows, and I'm also making videos out of that. And then as soon as these handmade shows are done, then we need an end table in the living room. So that's gonna be our next project. It's all based on what I need.
That's great. That's great. I have no more room for the things I made. I made so many things I've run out of room. They just they're piled up in my basement. I have things one of the ideas we have is, since I have this house in upstate New York that I do rent to strangers on a weekend basis, it's like a weekend getaway. Taylor and I have been thinking about the idea of, she has projects, of course, she's actually a handmade person as well, to put our projects up there and just put a price tag on them so people could see them and know that they're for sale. It's something we keep thinking we're going to do, but we just haven't gotten around to really doing it. Because if we did it, we want to do it like in a classy way. We don't want it just like the house to look like a tag sale. So we still have to see it through. But it's a way for us to get rid of some of the things that we keep making. She sells to stores. So.
You set up a lemonade stand out in front of the house, and so when they come in, they have to pass by it and pick out what they want.
How many projects are you guys ahead in your mind?
Oh, I just made a new notebook in class the other day, and whenever I make a new notebook, I immediately start drawing on the first few pages. And each page, I got about 10 or 15 projects that I still haven't made. And I have all different. One thing, a conclusion I've come to in the last year as far as YouTube goes, is that I don't have to. I'm going to use this as an example because this is a pretty elaborate project. I don't have to build a casket every week. This casket has taken me a lot longer than I anticipated. But I don't have to jump through hoops. I could make a little wooden spoon and it gets a lot of views. So I have lots of video ideas that are fairly simple. And so I always end up, I have a whole bunch of videos in line, but then something simple will come up and I'll do that. That's the point I'm making.
Are you on a video schedule?
I am with Make Magazine. I have to give them every other week. I give them a video. Typically, tonight is my submission. It's a Wednesday night right now. So I will finish the casket video tonight and submit it to them through the night. I'll dump it on Dropbox and they'll get it tomorrow, and then they'll publish it typically on a Thursday. But sometimes, lately, it's been a little loosey-goosey, but it's at least every 2 weeks. It's not exactly always on the same day.
Bob, are you on a schedule?
No, I wish that I was. And actually, that's another thing people ask me about a lot. Like, I think the trend, and I'm not really sure why this is, but I think the trend on YouTube is to be on a certain project schedule, maybe for people to have the expectation of when they can see something new.
It's just too hard.
It is. I wish I wasn't on a schedule, actually. Or I wish, or at least I'm thinking about moving it instead of every week to every 2 weeks, just because it's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure, and it limits you, like you're thinking, what can I fit in this week? Not what do I want to do? And for me personally, I would rather take a month and do a project that I really want to do, something I want to show off, rather than like, I got to fit something into this week, and it's going to be small and not interesting or whatever.
That's what happens with me, and that's why with the simple videos like the spoon, I literally made that before Maker Faire, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to make? And then the following week, I made a birdhouse log with just hand tools. That was sort of a personal challenge. And of course, I'd like to spend a lot more time doing simple stuff like that. But I do have, I got to submit it. And then, of course, I have my own work, which takes a considerable amount of time. And then And in my own work, I make videos. Actually, right now, I'm sitting on a video for Dickel. I'm waiting for them to give me the green light that I could publish a video of these boxes that I made, these toasting boxes that they wanted me to make. And again, I had like a week to make those. They said, I thought I had to make one prototype, and then they're like, "Oh, the prototype looks great. Can you make 15 more?" I was like, "For when?" I didn't even know you wanted more than one. They go, "When do you want them?" They go, "Can you have them in 10 days?" I said, "I guess."
I have a rush charge.
No, these guys, they've been very good to me. I can't complain at all. But they always just give me these projects that, like I got a call today. I got to make 3 signs, which I'm happy. I'm happy the phone rings and I get work. It's fantastic. But they want them in like 3 weeks from now. I'm like, when did you know you needed these signs? Like this afternoon? Like, I don't know. But it's good.
Yeah, I come from the web development world. I was a web developer for 9 years, and I experienced that every week. Every project was an emergency, and that's why I was happy to quit my job, because I wanted to get away from putting out fires all the time and living like that. So
I came from the same place, and I was in marketing, in the marketing side of web development for a long time. And that's where those fires are, or that's where they were for me. That was like, people think that their marketing is so, so important, and they put all this, all this pressure on the people who are producing the marketing stuff for them. And when I decided to get out of that part of the industry, I went from that to a product-based company, to where, it's 6 months of building a product. And the pressure is entirely different, because they know that it takes X amount of time to make a product, and the value is just totally different too. I mean, they value what they're doing in a way that marketing doesn't. And so, Jimmy, you're talking about working. Basically, you're making marketing stuff for these people, for all these different signs, and it's going to have that same kind of. The drive is different, when it's a product versus marketing for something.
You should see. You should see what I just made. I mean, I can't publish pictures of it because. I don't. It's like, again, maybe client confidentiality. I just, I haven't been given the okay to publish this stuff, so I don't want to get in trouble. But I just made a couple things for Johnny Walker. Actually, on my Instagram, there's the picture of the card catalog that I made. But that gets a lot of Johnny Walker branding, which is on it, of course, by now. That was just the basis of the product. But they sent me a picture of that and said, "Do you think you could make this and deliver it by October 17th?" And that was like October 1st.
How did you get involved with all these whiskey companies?
Actually, Make Magazine. Make Magazine in an odd way, because what happened was I started making videos for Make Magazine, and then I got a casting. Hey, Jimmy, you might be interested in this. They needed somebody to be in like a competition, a live bar building event for George Dickel, Raise the Bar. That was their slogan. Their marketing slogan is Raise the Bar. So me and one other guy were both going to raise a bar opposite each other, and who wins in the end was going to be, win $1,000. And what they were doing, in hindsight, they picked me and this other guy named Jeff Del Papa, who's sort of a maker in the maker community. He's actually involved in pumpkin chunking. He's always on the Discovery show, pumpkin chunking. Yeah. And Jeff is like a full-on metal worker, and I'm obviously I'm a little bit of everything. But in this case, I was the woodworker. So it was the woodworker versus the metal worker, and we were on a stage. I didn't know anybody. I had just taken a commitment to work at a toy company. This is in the end of 12. Yeah, going into 13. So August, I took the job in August, and then 2 weeks later, I got this casting call to work in Nashville to do this bar event, literally on a Saturday and a Sunday. And so I didn't tell the job that I just committed to work for. I just said, okay, see you Monday. And I got in my car and I drove to Nashville with my girlfriend. Did the event all day Saturday. Did the event all day Sunday. And I was able to drive home all the way through the night and get to work on Monday morning.
Wow.
And I just drove to Nashville the other day. Again, that's when I spoke to you guys on the phone the other day. But so that event just happened to be in Nashville that week. And then I met all the marketing guys. The event went well for me. I ended up building the bar. I didn't win the competition, by the way. the other guy won, which was ridiculous because every one of the marketing people came over to me during the weekend like, man, this is amazing. You're right on brand. This is amazing. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. And then there was this so-called tiebreaker, so that one guy picked me, one guy picked him, and then the tiebreaker stood up, who was the whiskey, the guy who is the brewer, not a brewer, the distiller. He's the master distiller, John Lund, who now he and I are friendly. But John Lund stood up and said, I'm going to cast my vote for the most creative, the most... And I thought he was talking about me because everybody said you were going to win. And then he goes, Jeff Del Papa. And there was like a wah, 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 because all the marketing people
and
were
then
like...
you sat back down.
Yeah, all the marketing people were like, we told you to pick the other guy.
Oh, man.
And so anyway, so it was a little, I was a little pissed off because everybody, for the 3 hours leading up to the vote saying I was going to win, and I didn't. So I went home without the extra couple $1,000. Mm. But they called me literally before I left. They said, can you do what you did this week for an event in New York in September? So now it's August. So I said, yeah. So that following few weeks later, I did my second bar build, which is the one that's on my YouTube channel. My friend did the video where it's like kind of got cool graphics. It's me building a bar for Meatopia where I do this kind of fancy joinery. That was the bar that I built, the second bar I built for Dickel. I built it in my garage and then I assembled it on site. And so that was my second event I ever did for them. And then since then, they just keep calling me back. And now I've become very friendly with that marketing group. My friend Bobby and Chuck, they're really great guys. They hire me constantly. And that's all the Dickel stuff and all the Bullet stuff. And now there's another branding team because Diageo owns all these different brands. So all the other branding teams have seen me do all these different things. And they call up Bobby and Chuck and they say, hey, can we use Jimmy to do this? Can we use Jimmy for Crown Royal? Can we use Jimmy for Don Julio? And so that's how I've been getting all these other jobs, literally just word of mouth. I mean, and it doesn't hurt that I've gone to an event called Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans where you rub elbows with all these marketing people. Late at night, everybody's on Bourbon Street till 6 in the morning, completely drunk. And I don't drink at all. I'm completely alcohol free. So it's funny, everybody, like you see everybody start to wilt in the beginning of the night. By the end of the night, everyone's like drinking water and they're all like watery-eyed and melty looking. And it's also in the dead of summer, so it's 100 degrees out.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You do these things and you hang out with these guys all night long and you bond. You bond and you become friends. And it's for me, it's a lot like my old days when I used to go to Hong Kong toy manufacturing. You'd hang out in the bars all night long with these guys, and you can't help but do business with them because everybody's there to do business. And you're like, they need someone to build a prototype. I just spent 3 hours with them in some strip club. They're going to give me the job, of course. And so that's how you get work like that. And it's not too different, this situation with these liquor brands. And everybody's fun and cool to hang out with, so it's so far so good. As long as I keep delivering and hopefully they like what I do. That's the other pressure is like hoping that I'm on point with what they want.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed with all the work you have going on?
Yes, all the time.
And
Always.
And Bob works a full-time job. Do you ever feel overwhelmed with all the stuff you got going on?
Oh, constantly, yeah. But not in a bad way. I think if it was in a bad way, I just wouldn't do it. I would drop the unnecessary stuff and focus on the job and the family only. But yeah, I mean, my days are packed 100%, and I sleep really hard at night. And,
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm overwhelmed, but I kind of do it to myself on purpose. So,
what's interesting? It's interesting what I do, and I don't know, maybe you guys can relate. I just say yes to everything. And in my world, it all has a way of falling into place. It's the strangest thing for me. I mean, maybe I have like an angel on my shoulder, but I say yes to everything, and all of a sudden I realized, like even tonight, like we were supposed to do the Skype thing. I completely forgot. I reminded myself a couple days ago, but I didn't write it on my hand, and I completely forgot. And I come home, and just as I sit down to edit my movie, I see the email from you guys. Hey, you guys going to do this? And that was like 5 minutes before when the email came in. So I'm like, I thought it was an hour and 5 minutes before. So I looked at the clock. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm only 5 minutes off. Boom, download Skype, open this microphone box, and here I am. So everything, all the pieces in my life always seem to fall into place, and I'm very grateful for that. And like I had to make this casket video, and then I also had to deliver a product for a client. At the last minute, the client canceled the delivery. She's like, let's do it at the beginning of November. There's no rush. So now I immediately got a clean slate this morning. I went to my 7 a.m. call to go see a client because she had no other time. So I went to see her at 7 a.m. on the Upper West Side, got back home and took a nap for 2 hours. And that's all because my client canceled. And then I got to spend the whole day making the casket video. So just another example of how things fall into place, knock wood. So.
Well, David, now you've recently, quit your job and your full-time job, and now you have a new full-time job doing all this stuff. So how overwhelming is it at this point?
I don't live by the philosophy of saying yes to everything, but for whatever reason, I have said yes to everything. And so now all of a sudden I have all these commitments. And I thought, I was going to quit my job and all the stress was going to go away and I was going to have a bunch of free time. And it turns out I don't really like free time. But yeah, so I'm doing 2 YouTube videos every week, and then the past couple weeks I've been also doing a video once a week for Highland Woodworking, just kind of like a product tour, not really a review, but just saying, hey, we have this product in, and that's not supposed to be every week. That's what's happened. So 3 videos a week for the past few weeks, and then nobody else knows this, but I might as well announce it now. I am working on a book. So
nice.
Springhouse Press asked me to make how to make a bandsaw box book. And so I just turned chapter 1 in a couple days ago, 1 week late. And so I'm working on that. And for whatever reason, I still do a freelance web project. And that I'm going to say no to from here on out, because I just got so much going on and just got married, and I need to enjoy the life sometimes. So I think I need to start saying no to certain projects so I don't feel overwhelmed. And so because I love everything that I do, but it's like, hey, I love chocolate chip cookies, but you shouldn't eat 20 chocolate chip cookies in one day, right? So
yeah.
So
the problem,
not every day.
Not every day. Yeah.
When it comes to turning away work, the problem I have, and I have to start turning away work, is because I think to myself, oh, that'll take 3 hours and I could make $1,000. They don't know that, But then when I say yes, all of a sudden that 3 hours turns into 6 hours, and then I start pushing other work around. That's much more profitable. So, like when you said you do your freelance web projects, I foolishly said yes to these people that I would design their bar. I gave them a quote that was 5 times a quote that they got from some other guy. So they're like, oh, can you design it and we'll have him build it? And I said, sure. So I gave him a number to design it, which is low, like $1,000 to just put together some drawings. It's the design based on their concept, but I'm problem solving the whole thing for them, how materials connect and go together. And so I'm doing these drawings. And at this point, I wish I never said yes, because it's easy for me to do the drawings, but it's pestering me, because every time I sit down, I'm like, oh, I got to do this. Oh, and I got to do those drawings. And I'd rather edit my video all night long than go back and do those drawings. The editing of a video is much more rewarding, and ultimately, I think is more, will be more rewarding to me in the long run than doing this bar sketch. But anyway, it's working its way out.
I do want to make it clear that I'm not complaining about anything that I'm doing, and I love it, and I need all this. Yeah, and
me neither.
I need all this because my future depends on how many followers and viewers that I get, and so all these projects that I take on is just going to increase more followers and viewers, and which is, I know,
absolutely,
in the long run it's gonna help me out. So
yeah, but there's also something about learning, and I guess we're probably all in this place, but learning, how to best use your time and what things you can do are the most profitable. It's not that all those things are bad, like you should really just turn them away just for the sake of turning them away. But, I found a few months ago I got a chance to do kind of an art craft type show. It was in a West Elm store, which is a pretty high profile store. And so I spent a couple of months making all this stuff to sell in the store, thinking, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to spend the time ahead of time, make all this stuff, then I'm going to be able to sell it all. And by spending the time making those pieces, I wasn't doing the videos I wanted to do. And then I got to this event, tried to sell them, and barely sold anything. And, you know, the day after, I'm looking back at that. I'm like, man, I misjudged how I was going to use my time and the worth that it had to me. So from that and a couple of other things, I just decided, like, you know, I don't need to be making stuff that might or might not sell. For me personally, that's just not where I get the enjoyment. Like, I really enjoy doing the videos. And so it helped me kind of hone my focus and how I'm spending my time too, you know. And I think that's probably something I wouldn't have figured out, though, if I hadn't actually just done it and then realized after the fact that that wasn't really what I wanted to do, you know.
You learn so much from experience.
Yeah, I always say, like my girlfriend's, she's younger than me, and she's still learning when it comes to this type of stuff. Don't ever feel like you've wasted time. It's just now you have a better point of view of where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a bad experience isn't necessarily a waste of time. You just learned that you never want to do that again. So you'll never do it again. So it's, you know, everything's a valuable learning experience, especially in this maker community, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Well, it's getting late, so we should wrap this guy up.
Yeah. Thanks for being a part of this first episode, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, as we define this a little bit more, I'm sure it'll change over time. And, you know, we also are interested in if you have some ideas for topics that we can talk about. We have some ideas, but it'd be great to hear from you guys and get some more ideas that we can work in future episodes. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.